An impending oversupply of apartments. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. I have my morning shine of coffee. Join in with yours everyone. And I thought we'd have a look at this article from Domain because it's discussing the impending oversupply of apartments just in a few pockets of Sydney. I'm sure it's not going to be a widespread issue. I'm sure those apartments you bought in that complex with another 400 other apartments are going to be unique and special because you bought it and you'll have no problem renting it out or selling it. That's the problem with these things. You go there and you have a look at them and they look nice, they're clean, the facilities are good, but then you get some experience with dealing with body corporates. And then you learn to appreciate the fact that you're just one of many. One of many. It's going to be challenging times for some of these investment geniuses, I'm afraid, because there's going to be a lot of competition for renters and then for sales. And, well, that's not even discussing the other big issue in the room, and I'm just bringing up Google Earth when it loads up, which is just the construction issues that are rampant in our multi-res sector. And it's taking too long to bring up, so I won't show it to you. But we have here, well, no, here it is. We have what I call the triangle of fail in Sydney. The triangle of fail. And I will just turn that up. We're not looking at mining things at the moment. We zoom into Sydney, you can see here. And this is between Sugar Cube, Zetland, Mascot Towers, just this whole area, there's issues. And it's not just, I know I'm picking on Sydney, but it's not just Sydney. It's all throughout the country. People are sending me information. I'm learning about things, reading articles in Perth, Darwin, the Gold Coast, Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, everywhere. So that's another consideration, another risk factor. We've got now reports of a potential or an impending oversupply of apartments. You've got pretty much hammered consumer confidence in them. And, competition for tenants and competition to sell. So let's have a look, guys. Apartment prices in some of Sydney's fastest growing regions could be hard hit in the coming months as thousands of new units are completed amid a dramatic slowdown in population growth. And by population growth, there's going to be less international students coming to the city, less migrants coming to the city. And often, as we read in other articles, Sydney is a place where people arrive at when they first rock up in Australia, then they migrate somewhere else. I think my father, he migrated straight to Melbourne and he pretty much stayed there. My uncle migrated to Adelaide, got off the boat and worked for Holden for most of his life and stayed there. Parts of Sydney could be left with a surplus of units as housing demand dries up off the back of border closures and the economic impact of a pandemic, pushing already rising vacancy rates higher and putting downward pressure on rents and property prices. We're going to see rents fall across a lot of Sydney, and the unit market is more likely to be harder hit than houses, said Domain economist Trent Wiltshire. And, well, he's right there. There's a big difference between a house and an apartment, guys. Apartments may be cheaper to buy, but depending on the size of the block you've got, and you've got all these ongoing costs and these maintenance costs. Apartments have fared worse than houses on both sides of the supply and demand equation, Mr. Wiltshire said. The number of units for rent has increased off the back of short-term holiday lets hitting the rental market, but there had been an even bigger drop-off in demand as inner-city suburbs and those around universities were vacated by international students and hospitality and tourism workers who had lost employment. And we've also looked in other examples where adults are moving back home with their parents, guys, to save money, which is completely understandable. People are consolidating how they're living. People are finding ways to save money. Consumer confidence is just ludicrous. Utterly ludicrous. It's off the charts. Crashed. Well, it's not really off the charts. You can't technically get off the charts. But you know what I mean. Business confidence. I can't. I still, every time I look at that chart, I don't understand how anyone would go and get a loan right now to pay for ongoing expenses of their business. I don't get it, guys. I just don't get it. The prospect of that scares me. Maybe it's just all the news and media that I'm consuming. Maybe it's the fact that I've been, binge watching, Dave Ramsey, debt-free shouts on the YouTube. But just the idea of taking even a low-rate loan to pay for wages, to pay for expenses that aren't going to earn you any money now. It's different to investing in new capital or equipment. Let me know, guys, if you know anyone who's taken the plunge and why they've done it. Share in the comments, please. By April, more than 1 in 10 apartments in the CBD was sitting empty, according to the latest vacancy rate data from SQM. Then in addition to that, there's just been lots of new apartments built, and there's still more hitting the market, Mr. Wiltshire said. And here we go. This is the thing. We're getting the Property Council pushing for $50,000 housing handouts that we looked in a previous video. We've got the New South Wales government even suggesting buying apartments to keep the construction industry going. They want to keep that machine running, the property machine running, when we've got an impending oversupply of stock. And we'll jump over here, guys. We'll just quickly have a look. This is from the ABS. You can see the March figures. Now, I remember back when I was at uni, you used to have to pay for all this data, guys. You used to have to pay for all the ABS data. Now it's all free. The building code you used to have to pay for, it's free too. I'm just waiting for all the Australian standards to be free as well. So everyone in the building game, we should do a petition or something. It's because it's ludicrous that we have to pay for bloody documents which are pretty much legislated as law because they're referred to in their NCC. Anyway, I'm completely off topic there. So we can see here the building approvals have gone. Dwelling units approvals have shot up in March. Private sector houses have slightly gone up. But we can see here the overalls from 2019 to 2020. Total dwelling unit approvals, just 1% increase. And totaled seasonally adjusted at 0.2. But if we jump over here to the next chart, this is the building activity. This is from December. It's the latest we could get there. But you can see its work, value of work done is trending down. And then the value of work done trend estimates. New residential and non-residential. So total and new residential is trending down. Non-residential is slightly going up. So that's taking a hit there as well. Which isn't a surprise. It depends on who you talk to in the property sector, in the construction industry. I've got another article looking at a big hit to construction. But anecdotally, I was talking to an engineer yesterday, and he was saying, education work is starting to pick up. Government work is starting to pick up. And that's what's keeping us busy at the moment. Is, if you've got government work or got connections to government work, that's going to start picking up. We'll have to see, guys. I'd hate to be completely dependent on the multi-res or the housing sector. I know some people in the comments are saying that they're making good coin in renovations, which I'm not surprised. There may be people who have lived in their house for months and going, you know what, we need another room, we need to do this, we need to put this wall up. And rather than me, going on Gumtree and getting free timber and whacking up a wall, they'll probably hire someone to do it. There you go. But nonetheless, let us know in the comments how you're facing it out there in construction. But back to this apartment oversupply. Sydney is still absorbing the tail end of new units from the city's building boom, with a record 42,414 dwellings completed in Greater Sydney last financial year, according to government figures, and more dwellings to come. Despite the recent market downturn, more than 66,600 dwellings across Greater Sydney were approved since mid-2018, the latest ABS figures to March show. Almost 40,000 of these were units, more than a quarter of which were spread across just 10 regions, mostly in the city's west, northwest, or southwest. And this is where I'll bring up the unit price growth chart we can see here. That the growth in unit values, hasn't been equally distributed. There's definitely some biases there. The Riverstone and Marsden Park area recorded the most unit approvals of any SA2 region, with more than 2,180 approved between July 2018 and March 2020. And SA2, it's just it's the new method that the ABS uses to measure suburbs, pretty much. You know, I think suburbs are out of date, so they're trying to get communities regardless of suburbs. It's statistics, guys. Following this were the Homebush and Silverwater regions with almost 1,600 approvals, and St. Leonard's and Narromburn region with 1,150 approvals, and Rosehill and Parramatta, the city's fastest growing region, with more than 1,000. We can see here. Blacktown Council area forecast to see the greatest increase in housing supply over the next 5 years, accounted for 1 in 8 approvals over the time frame. With approved apartments estimated to take just over 2 years on average to complete, Mr. Wiltshire said the figures indicated where new apartments would hit in the coming months. Now here's the thing as well, guys. The fact that we're still seeing construction or buildings getting demolished and new ones getting put up, the thing is, these developers, it's probably, some of them are just going to keep pushing through because they don't want to, well, they're concerned about the loss they would make by halting now. The sunk cost fallacy is what a lot of people could be falling for, potentially. When you put cost into something, you're worried about losing it, so you just chase more good money after what could be bad. You see it in investing all the time. You know, a share is going down, something's going down. Oh, I'll buy in the dip, and it keeps going down. Same thing here. If you've got a huge development, you've sunk in all this money, your building approvals could expire, you just push through. Areas of new supply that typically saw more new arrivals from overseas faced a double whammy. He said, but added that reduced interstate migration away from Sydney, particularly if it became more affordable, could help mitigate this. I wonder if that can ever happen. I wonder if Sydney and affordable has ever been used in the same sentence, more affordable. The suburbs near universities would be ones to watch. They potentially could see some bigger falls if there is lots of supply there as well, Mr. Wiltshire said. Also, perhaps areas where more migrants settle, such as the western suburbs, but the flow-on effects may not be that targeted. But any oversupply would likely be short-lived, experts say, as developers shelved approved projects amid economic uncertainty and reduced demand. How short is short-lived? You know, short-lived, it's not like the hedonic index every day. Short-lived would be months or years in this cycle, wouldn't it, with regards to property? Urban Task Force Chief Executive Tom Forrest said that only twice in the past decade, off the back of the building boom, had enough housing been provided to keep up with Sydney's population growth. You may have some temporary declines, and you may have a buyer's market for a period, but ultimately it will become a supply and demand issue, he said. The market washes itself out. He added, people will jump in and buy when they think they can get a bargain. Maybe there will be a price drop in some areas to sort things out. That's life. Forecasts released by the Housing Industry Association on Wednesday predicted new home starts nationally will be down next week by almost 50%, next year by almost 50%. Wow. That's going to be a big hit to the construction game. The shock to the economy from the halting of overseas migration, the absence of student arrivals, and uncertainty over the domestic economy will see the market at a low point in December 2020 than it was during the 1990s recession, Managing Director Graham Wolfe said. It will then continue to decline through 2021, even with the return of overseas students and migration. Mr. Wolfe noted that the 625,000 overseas students enrolled in Australian education institutions equated to demand for the past 2 years of apartment construction. And there you go. There you can see why the Property Council is calling for increased migration and reducing the scoring requirements. Developers were likely to start discounting prices to prevent settlement defaults on soon-to-be-completed apartments, real estate company JLL noted in its most recent unit market update, stating there was anecdotal evidence that some contracts were already being cancelled. In the short term, there will be some supply to soak up in parts, said Lee Warner, JLL's head of residential research. You'll see projects stall and sales fall, Mr. Warner said, of pockets of oversupply. It will become tougher in outer-lying areas because of cascading demand. If there's a lot of availability and cheaper prices in closer locations, that will drag some demand in. But Mr. Warner stressed Sydney would still face a shortage of housing in years to come. While demand had been eased due to the pandemic, a drop-off in construction activity would see oversupply of units soaked up in coming years. And this is the thing, the time frame they're talking about is the years. And this is if the population growth continues in Sydney. This is if the international student demand returns. We'll have to see, everyone. We'll have to see. I think it's quite disingenuous, particularly the Property Council's calls to advertise to get more people to come overseas when our economy is not looking very good, everyone. What do you think? Are you worried about an oversupply of apartments in Sydney? Would you buy one? Would you buy one with all the issues they've had down there? That's the thing. That's the real concern. As always, thank you for watching. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and you'd like to support us, there are a few ways you can. You can join the channel on YouTube or Patreon. You can use our affiliate links at Amazon or eBay or Independent Reserve and Kucoin. You can buy a merch from HeiseSays, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care, guys. I'll see you in the next video.